This is a conversation with Douglas Mefford for the Kentucky Marriage Equality and Religious Liberty Oral History Project. We are in the studio room of Breckenridge Hall on Morehead State's campus, located in Rowan County, Kentucky. It is July 5th, 2016, 2 p.m. My name is Dakota Barr. First of all, I'd like to thank you for agreeing to meet with me today, Doug.
I'm glad to be here.
I'd like to start with some biographical information, such as where you were born and where you grew up.
I was born in Scott County, Kentucky, a little village to the north part called Stamping Ground. Technically in the hospital at the county seat, but that's where we were living, and I got drugged back to. From there, early on then they'd moved closer into Georgetown. I spent the first 30 years of my life in central Kentucky. Ended up coming to Rowan County in 1980. January of 85, there was a lady that had a print shop here, could find nobody that could run a printing press, and so she pulled me up here, and it might have took more than 3/10 of a second to just feel like I'd finally come home, but I hit here and I've never really wanted to be anywhere else. It's just half a lifetime, but it's been a pretty good one.
If you could just tell me about your childhood for a minute.
Born in farmland down there. Mom and Dad, like most people at that time, they went to a little country Christian church, which they dragged the kids off. Me, I just kept trying to make sense of it all, because I got to liking logical things when I was young, and that didn't make sense, and I studied, but by the time I got into high school, I was doing pretty good in oration, speech club, things like that. So they got a crazy idea that because, most country churches, if you can get one of your sons to become a minister, that's sort of a free ticket into heaven. So they put me on the fast track, and yet maybe I did it wrong, because maybe I was just supposed to have read about theirs, but instead I got to studying about all religions, just to see what it is. Oh, you want to talk about religion? Fine. So by the time I'd studied Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Zoroastrianism, Jintoism, Catholicism, everything, I realized that religions were a joke. But it did show me that spirituality is very much an inherent part of the human existence, and that you don't really need a religion for that. They usually use that to try and trap people into a mold and control them. So I've been pretty much disenfranchised that way for probably a good 45 years of my life, because it just, I look for things that make sense. And religions, all of them, good, bad, they're good in some, bad in some, but all of them seem to basically be man-made control devices. And I figured that if man's ever going to control himself, he needs to do it himself instead of trying to give it up to some invisible ideology. If they do, they can always try truth and justice, but that doesn't always seem to pan out. For that, like I said, got into printing as a career after high school, and had been running a print shop down in Georgetown for a while, but get kind of tired of it, and it was one of those that there was no further advancement. So when the opportunity to come to move up here and work for the lady that ran Pioneer Printing Service, Juanita Blair, jumped on it, came up here, and did that for a while until she retired. Then a couple of friends of mine that, a couple of business owners, they sort of helped put money into it and bonds into it to keep me around till I could use the shop to pay them back, and it became my own shop, which was really fun then, because American printing put a lot of emphasis on the American. It was very much, the ideology behind it was for patriotism and a belief in this country, which, is just, earlier points in what eventually brought us up to last summer and why I ended up out there. Because, first thing I did when the shop became mine, I basically printed out a sheet of paper that contained the Bill of Rights, first 10 amendments of the Constitution, the things which supposedly give us a sense of freedom that most people take for granted, and a small note that we are required to know them and protect them from enemies both foreign and domestic. Because the government, there are elements within the government itself which continue to try and diminish the rights that we were given when this country was founded. And it's like it. I mean, from the time I got early, when I was just starting school, and some of the black kids I met and got friends with weren't treated quite the same, kind of, so I started pestering people as an early age about, something ain't right here, they would sit there and teach you that, that this country is founded with the idea of freedom and equality for everyone. And I look around and I see so many people not being treated equal that it's not been a constant obsession, but anytime that such things have been noticed, I've generally found my way getting dropped right into the middle of it. I was too young at civil rights to do much more than aggravate my family and maybe make a few of them question their long-held beliefs. By the time I got into a teenager and protesting the involuntary drafting of people to go fight in some little war that nobody could say why for was my first big one. Me and a friend, we'd skip school and run up to the protests at the University of Kentucky in Lexington. I think statute of limitations for skipping school are over by now. Again, back in, like I said, by then I had my own print shop back in the 90s when the powers that be wanted to try and demonize the concept of the militias and tried to use the media to make patriot a dirty word. I was into that fight again for a while. And then, come up last year here and such blatant human rights violations right here in our little town. There was no way not to get so incensed as to start screaming and yelling and doing everything that could legally be done to try and address that.
So how and when did you first become involved in the marriage equality movement?
Well, like I said, keep up with things, and was very happy when the Supreme Court finally made the determination that, wow, we've been wrong for 200 years. These are people, too, that deserve equal rights. Just like they did black folks only, 50 years ago? Which is still a long, hard-fought thing. But I thought, wow, maybe this country is progressing. They're, slowly but surely, whatever this dupliciousness that founded it, saying one thing, doing another, was slowly getting it. Within my lifetime, I'd seen them finally realize that, hey, black people are people too. They're just like you and me, equal rights. That's what it means. Then this comes up again, and, I was so happy because, geez, I like science, biology, things that can be proven, over and over without any special gimmicks. And despite the screaming of religious people, specifically those of the Abrahamic tradition, doing it where, other cultures around the world had no problem with it. You go out, like lots of the Indian tribes, especially in the Southwest, they call them people of two spirits. If a guy was that way, as they may, he might not make the greatest warrior or hunter, but he was in touch enough with the earth that he was the one that would actually teach the children all about the birds and the flowers and let them have all that knowledge they would need to know by the time they came of age and took their place in the tribe in there. Worked fine for them until the Europeans sort of came along. Other cultures around the world, it's not something that is it's basically the way nature makes it. They have documented homosexuality in at least 180 species of higher birds and mammals. It's there. They know how it is because, it's a wild, wild world in the food chain. Some things die. Those particular ones which genetically were that way were there then to help as stand-ins to adopt some infant of whatever species it was, take care of it, birds especially. They'll jump right in there and take care of it till it's grown. They don't have to lay the eggs themselves. That sort of seems to be a human conceit. But it's always been right, and then, it tried to lend support as well as I could through the years of seeing them try and fight for their rights, since, well, it finally worked. The black folk finally forced them to acknowledge that they had been wrong for centuries. So, why not that? And we were so happy that it did it, because, wow, the country is finally slowly becoming enlightened. It's growing up. It's becoming more mature instead of like some little juvenile kind of culture. And I was happy. And then a few days later, start hearing that there was problems uptown. So I, was coming back from the store, saw some people out on there, and found out what they were there for, and realized that right here and there, someone who was supposed to be a government worker had blatantly violated their oath, an oath to the highest law of this land, that to serve it, and basically prove that their word is worth nothing. They tried to pull a religious coup on our government, and that so incensed me, because I've known people from around the world, different religions, and the thing about America that is the greatest saving grace it's ever had to try and become a power was that everyone should be treated the same. And yet, they're not. I mean, they said that stuff, and it took them 100 years and a major war for black people to even be free. Another 100 years before they actually accepted that they had rights like everybody else. Gay folk comes up, this stuff, it is wrong, and anyone with a right conscience I cannot see how they could sit back and just accept this kind of duplicity. And then seeing how quickly this could become something, a greater threat to our nation, because if one person is allowed to flaunt the law and get away with it, then it emboldens others to flaunt the law and expect to get away with it. And with all the rhetoric and doublespeak going on, there's all kinds of people think that, without thinking about what a word means, keep screaming for stuff that they've already gotten, but are just merely trying to keep away from everyone else. To speak religiously, I've been a pagan priest for about 25 years now. It's more of that, If I were to run for office and start trying to inflict things in there that I thought was my way and that they're wrong, I would expect to be driven out of it. But, one thing I learned this year is that in this past year is that people in the government, they have got it written up pretty much to the point to where they have found ways to not have to be accountable to most any of the laws of the land that they passed and allegedly make us have to be. This goes all the way as it started, and she just kept basically, I have trouble speaking of it because I take oaths seriously. I always have. Something like that done in the military would get you put before a firing squad to sit there, and that's the same as directly disobeying an order from your superior officer. This oath breaking, this proving to the world that your word is worthless, was bad, because here she just got in there and said, oh, well, it's going to be run the way my little church wants it, regardless of what the law says. Fuck you all. That just incensed me, because I try very hard to be honest with people. It's not easy, but it's the way I want to be, because I hope it helps me have a little bit more oomph to try and help others push the world into a better place. I don't deal well with liars, and she made herself out to be the worst of liars, who not only lied, broke her word, but flaunted it and was putting herself in a role of celebrity for being a betrayer of our country and the laws of our land, and thinking she was doing right for God. It doesn't matter. There are 380 religions active on this planet right now. I could not even list you all the names of the thousands of gods that are being served on this planet right now. When somebody says God bless, well, you got to ask which God. That goes anywhere from Zeus to Allah to, let's see, go through the Greek pantheon. We can get over into Hindu. You've got Krishna, all those folks. Gods are basically inventions of man. Because of the spiritual aspect of humanity, people find that and they try and make little stories up about it to try and control people. I know in the old days it was sort of a double backup to try and help keep, all the people in a, primitive culture kind of on the same page about how to behave. But it's still, that is not some lightning bolt from beyond, because quite frankly there really is no lightning bolt from beyond. Where to go from there? What got me into it? There was just a whole cocktail of things just were so wrong and were happening a mile from my house. Right here where I live and have, spent quite a few years even owning a business here, live around here, know the people around here, like the land, and then something with such earth-shaking possibilities is happening right here. I've never been afraid of confrontation, so there I was, because this country is, our government is secular so that everybody can have a part of it and not some kind of little religiously run thing, so everybody's got to watch out for the Sharia, of course. Because whether you've got religious extremists from Islam or religious extremists from Christianity I think the Catholics have mostly got over their extremists during the Inquisitions and the Crusades and things like that. They have matured a little bit, but even that, that was not created till 300 and some AD by current reckoning, when Emperor Constantine made it the state religion of the Roman Empire and said, okay, it's this way or I'll kill you. Islam came along a few hundred years after that. I guess it's maybe about 1,400 years old. Protestantism is only about 600 years old. These things, we go all the way back to the first atom that congregated together to make our planet. No, you didn't. Try history. They actually still have the books around, and a few people can read them if you haven't killed them all off yet. So, because, who burnt the Library of Alexandria? Early Christians. Most religions feel that intelligence is a threat to them, because if you learn how to find stuff out, see how things work, know what's going on, that gives you a lot greater possibility to not live and die by the local fairy tale. And it is, it would be nice to think that the world was so magic and miraculous that totally impossible things could happen on a daily basis, but unfortunately the laws of physics take care of things pretty good, and despite them, poor old Galileo, he actually took a telescope and said, I don't think everything goes around our planet, so they put him under house arrest, threatened to kill him if he didn't recant, and took him 600 years to apologize to him for the fact that, I think he was right after all, we really do go around the sun. That's the kind of stuff that just drives me crazy with religion, and when people start trying to force their religion on me, that's wrong, because religious freedom means that you can go to your little tent or tabernacle or whatever with your family and your friends, and you can get down and do what you want to mumbo jumbo God of the Congo if you want to, as long as you're not hurting anybody. But it in no way gives them the right to try and force me to have to do it unless I want to, because my idea of how the world works, what the little spirit that inhabits and animates our bodies, will do, is completely different from theirs. And They always scream about all the persecution that they're going through. There are people who would love to have a platform and enough of a majority to not be afraid of trying to point out to some of these just how thoroughly evil a lot of their actions are to other people. Other people's point of view, they think they're kind, but I found that most of them, even when I was growing up, I kind of liked what Jesus said. He was kind of like me as I was slowly working my way towards being a little long-haired countrified hippie. Peace, love your brother, get along, stuff like that. He loved it, but then that's kind of what ultimately drove me away. I looked at all the people, and they were saying something completely different, and I finally figured what it was. Jesus coming up for, providing it existed. I'm not going to say, because that's one thing they don't have records for, if that one was, but just the idea and the concept as a philosophy, love people, try to get along, this, that would have been cool, except for the other stuff. It seems to me that most people, that sounds too hippie-ish, so they say, screw that, spit on Jesus, run back to Papa Yahweh in the Old Testament, which, by the way, were just laws that the Jews had written. For the Jews in that tribe, it had nothing to do with the rest of us, these Gentiles, as we're called. That's what, I guess you would call him their savior, they call him. I think he tried to save them from the stuff that Jewish law, because it was pretty harsh on everybody, and he just wanted everybody to love each other, because love's a powerful power. That's redundant, very awesome, but I try to get out of it, but I cannot see what some of these people get out of it, how they can in any way convince themselves that this stuff works. And so it just but anyway, back to just that, there again, I love my country. I actually love people, which a lot of people wonder, because I can act like a misanthrope, but I'm not really. But I had to go out there and say something, because it was too close to home to just shut up and not. I have this crazy idea that if we don't kill ourselves as a species before that, humans have the potential to be pretty awesome beings. And part of that is getting over the little childish, petty hatreds and, disagreements with each other. Find a way to work towards it. And the only way to do that is slow by sure, accept people for the way they are, and that they're different from you, and that nobody is particularly better than anybody. You've got smart people, you would rather have them running the power plant than some guy that has trouble tying his socks, but still the essential humanity needs to be accepting. And just when we thought that this country had taken another little step, you get somebody from a group that detests intelligence trying to force their ideology on everybody else. It had to stop. It was illegal, and it disappointed me in the powers that be and the government that they would allow someone to spit in their face that way and get away with it, become a celebrity for breaking the law, be a celebrity for breaking their oath, being a celebrity for being a liar and a trickster. And I'm not going to go too much further without changing the subject, so I don't just get all riled, because yes, it is a, you can really get me wound up sometimes talking about such things. I had a problem that wouldn't let me serve when I was young. I had my older brother got college deferment because he was the brainiac in the family, didn't go to Vietnam. I got lucky. The Nixon signed the order suspending the active draft literally on the day I turned 18. So birthday present from the president. Didn't go. It was just as well I found out later that there were some issues that would have kept me out anyway. My younger brother, though, he was a career Marine for a number of years. Know that, what we have here as a nation needs to be defended. Problem is, it seems more and more that it needs to be defended from enemies within. Just like this, what this person did here. You might think she's just this little county clerk here, but in the past year, we have seen her embolden terrorists to go out and murder, terrorists and government to pass laws saying, oh, we want to drive these people back into slavery or out of sight because we don't like their looks. Well, why? Where's your science for it? Oh, no science. It's we got this little book here that we don't know who was written about it because we refuse to believe all them scholars who say that this stuff was written like, 2nd century, 3rd century, or some of it, like that, I'm babbling, I know it. But this stuff is just, that's what got me, just the essential wrongness of how people trying to fight just for their place to be equal in this country, like this country was founded for them to be, and then have these people for no good reason start trying to stomp them back down and say, oh no, you're a third-class citizen and we don't even like calling you a citizen at all, kind of stuff. It just went all over me. I had to get out there and do something. There was no way in good conscience I could not.
So after you found out about the clerk's decision, I'm curious to know what your immediate action was.
Well, first day, rode up by here, and there's a couple folks with signs out front of the courthouse. I stopped and talked to them a little bit, and the next day I was there holding the sign with them and spent just about every day last summer out there. My wife and I, we were the ones that instigated, because at first the folks that were doing it, they wanted to be very quiet and polite and nice and show how friendly they were, and I said, but no, you've got to raise some racket or nobody will pay attention to you. So we started yelling chants at the window. Next thing you know, we had reporters showing up, and it just started getting attention, and then more people came down when they could. There were a few of us that were there about every day. For basically, I did freelance writing, most of it online. I thought, well, I can get it away. Ultimately, I ended up losing all my clients, and it's kind of rough there trying to get back into it now, but it didn't matter because some things are more important. The fight for what has been the saving grace for this country, the right to be able to try and change towards the better. It was well worth it, financially I'm not as well off now as I was then, but that doesn't matter. Known people of all kinds all my life. Met a lot of really good folk last summer, and am glad that I did help try and force the I'm trying to think of a kind way to say, because saying evildoer, which is kind of hokey, but people who just strive to destroy the law of the land, because that's what it was a blow against the very rights in this country that make it great. Lost it. But yeah, I've met good people and was proud to help try and shake a little bit of sense. Wish there was some way we could pick it up and turn it upside down until we could shake the stupid out of it and put some more sense back in their pockets, because there's still a long way to go. Even here, we've got people in power dodging and whiffling and trying, we don't want to, upset those folks that go to church. They might vote us out of office. Well, if you are trying to wiggle around a law that has kept this country great for 200 years, then you are an enemy of this country. And straight up, there are a lot of, we're patriots, we love it, here, God and country, blah, blah. If you are trying to destroy the laws, you are an enemy of this country. You might as well just pick up a gun and start shooting like other terrorists do, because it is through the mutual acceptance of these laws is all that keeps this society from crumbling into chaos. It's not all that hard to lose it. But yeah, that's what happened. Let's see the question. What did I do immediately after finding it? I immediately just, my wife and I talked it over that night, looked around a few things, saw a video where, that one of the gay couples had posted of them being rather imperiously showed the door like they were scum. And, babe, we got to. And so we started making arrangements with clients to put them off and the like a bit, because we had to get out there in it and add our voice and our whatever little erg of soul power I could put out into it, into trying to help rectify this horrid mistake that had gone on, or horrid attack. I don't know. It was a mistake they did it, because it just, now that they let her get away with it, people all over the country and even around the world are beginning to think that it's fine to spit on other people just because, well, he ain't like me, so it's disgusting. Sorry. I get passionate about such things.
Would you have considered yourself an activist before these protests?
I have occasionally. Like I said, earlier, there have been a few times in my life that some cause got up in my face enough that I had to get out and start trying to change it. When I was just a little kid, we're talking about, elementary school and the like, I couldn't get out there and help the folks fighting for civil rights, but I sure made some of my family uncomfortable. It got better, first got the first taste of actual, protesting, as is the American way of trying to let the leaders know that, you've messed up, we don't like this. So my first chant was, hell no, we won't go. I was skipping school and a friend took us off to Lexington. Like I said, there, after that, got out, raising, started raising a family, sort of thought that, that I'd done my bit. The next generation of kids behind me might come up and, pick up the fight there and let me get on with raising my own next generation. But no, some years later I get up, and when this comes up trying to demonize people who are very much love the country. Admittedly, yes, some of them are a little bit fanatical, but, still that is the right and, a good possibility for helping keep things from going completely bad, because there is that. They let everybody have guns because an armed citizenry was there not only for defense of them personally, but as I can't remember if it was Jefferson or Adams said, that it is for defense against tyranny in government, which, you can see most countries that have tried to, keep their citizens from being able to fight back. They, got to find ways to bribe them to keep from doing it, and it doesn't stop anybody, because if you can't shoot somebody with the gun, you'll take a knife or a stick or a rock or to them, People, if they're going to hurt somebody, they're going to hurt somebody, But yeah, this has been my been into it the most. This has been the strongest, because, I don't know if this is ever going to stop now. I've learned so much more about some of the inner workings of our government in this last year. I have seen some places where it seems that this government failed the people by trying to take care of itself and dragging it out so that they basically disenfranchise people from wanting to take an interest so they can go behind the shadows and do what they want, I guess. There's a lot needs to be changed to try and bring it back. Just getting the elected officials to think about the people rather than themselves, and that's going to be hard. I don't know how that's going to happen, but we keep working on it. There are even political issues in this town yet to work on. We have back early talking about Morehead was one of the first cities around, started a fairness ordinance to protect people up to and including sexual orientation, and yet they just made a specific officer in the city government in charge of that, and now that person that is in charge of it has rather blatantly exposed himself as the very kind of bigot that the fairness ordinance is supposed to protect against. So, there are still battles to change that yet to go. There are good things, bad things coming out of it. Got in with some people just trying to do our best to find ways to make a positive difference here now, because there are still so many people whose rights are stomped on. I mean, even after, because I'm not going to say if, because I know even after 50 years, some people still have trouble with black folk, so, 50 years from now, they're still going to have people having trouble with gay folk. But by then, I do hope that the battle for women's rights will have taken such an effect that the boys are going to have to sit down and shut up by the time they realize they're going to have to quit treating their women like shit. The battle to make the Founding Fathers' statement of a country where everyone was equal is a battle I see that just needs more and more to be fought harder and harder as it has gotten further and further from the mission statement. That they never started on mark with it was kind of bad. That, a couple of 100 years and a whole new generation of people, hey, let's go back and do it the way you said instead of the way you do. So that's what we're doing.
I want to go back to the protests.
Yeah.
What would you classify the environment at the protests like?
Started out pretty good, because everybody here that wanted to protest for the LGBT community, to force the local government to give them the rights that they had finally been acknowledged they had, wanted to keep it peaceful. We kept it peaceful. In fact, there were sometimes I think it was too peaceful, because a lot of people wouldn't take it serious, just people up there, waving and smiling and trying to look happy and say, hey, wrong being done, want to help us out, It changed. We started having a bunch of the evangelicals and fundamentalists getting shipped in from all over the place. We even had groups shipped in. I mean, there were people from Texas and Tennessee, I think there were some up, all different parts in the state, just descending on here in our town, like it was their business. It started getting dangerous because the fundamentalist element, they are just so filled with hatred for anything but their little narrow belief of what it's like for them. The people over there, we saw guns. We saw threats made to us, hatred. At one point, there was a whole bunch of them was getting ready to run over me, my wife, and a friend of ours had just turned around and started doing chanting, and we were probably about 10 seconds away from being pudding when one of the guys there noticed that the media was out there and there were about 3 cameras on them. So he nudged his buddy and pointed around, and then they kind of swerved and made it look like, oh no, we were going to go over there instead of over that way, but no, too late, dude, because you're running around, you go up this way, you can't just suddenly cut back and then go that way and say that you weren't just getting ready to swamp the noisy little people up there that were in the opposition. The more things happened and they kept dragging more people in, it got dangerous. When we were first out there, didn't need police. We weren't doing anything. We were definitely not going to be hurting anybody because we had the law on our side. I mean, Supreme Court had said, hey, we're sorry. Yes, those people should have been getting married for 150 years. Well, they're going to do it now. Get over it. And so we didn't have to have a point to prove. We just had to try and put enough pressure to make them obey the law. But as they started shipping in all these others, I mean, there some, I think probably some of the closest groups were just from Carter County, but that's still not our town. This was something going on in Rowan County, and we didn't need podunk whatever other county intruding because they were bringing hatred, they were bringing violent intentions. By the time it became a media circus, when finally there had been enough, here, if we forgive us, please, Miss Kimmy, and here, we'll make it to where these people can still get their stuff without hurting your feelings. The media circuit, there were people with guns. I mean, there was, And the thing is that there was those elements of local government that was all for this betrayal of the country's laws. The courthouse is supposed to be a gun-free zone. Them old boys that was over there, with guns with the fundies, they was running in and out of the courthouse, right past cops who wouldn't say nothing. There was that big award thing that the state government put on for Kimmy to give her an award for breaking federal law. And there were, scan some of the footage of the crowd. We saw several of our deputies were down there, yay, yay, yay. Their day off. They weren't there in an official capacity. They were there in their capacity as fundy haters. And they were the kind of people, then we got worried because they were the ones close at hand. If some of these people decided to start shooting that we were going to hope would protect us. There were several times, it got worse. It got worse. It got to where, fortunately, they even had, state police started showing up and others. But the beautiful thing of it was they weren't watching our side. They knew we were not going to do anything like that. But it was all the church people they were watching out to see when they were going to go off and start killing people. That's just the way it was. Anybody that's out there, they probably saw that for themselves, especially towards the end. So, my biggest regret is that I did not have a recorder so I could go over there and record some of the filth being spewed by them. There was one preacher, a big ringleader over there. I had heard that he had political aspirations, but the kind of stuff he was spewing out there to all these people, and the little kids that were being drugged into this, was so foul, I wouldn't even want to see that kind of stuff in a R-rated movie. Disgusting descriptions of how these horrible gays have sex and la da da. Dude, man, are you obsessing much on that? But it was bad. The only thing I wish that I had recordings of some of that, just to show people or just to be able to prove again to people just how foul of stuff was being thrown our way just for being out there saying, hey, the government finally said everybody can get married. Me, I'm sorry. I'm straight. I can't help it, but that shouldn't matter. I've never figured out why anybody tries to define somebody by who they want to sleep with. I always thought that was their business, But it was kind do, and that is another part of what needs to be fought to ever try and bring this country out of the dark ages. So the answer is yes, it started out nice, but as more media attention was played and more of the haters were shipped in, it started getting scary. It started getting dangerous. It surprised me that no more than a few minor scuffles took place. And since, they didn't back down and give up, there are still those with their festering anger that things didn't go their way is got it to where even now, the tensions are high enough in this area that, danger is not averted. And it's getting that way because nothing was ever done to clamp down this rebellion against common sense. It's spreading. That little thing in Orlando a few weeks ago was just a prime example of why, that hatred was not shut down, so it's grown. And go right down here, and between here and Frankfurt, you can see, find the people responsible for this growing trend of murderousness against a set of people, which are no more than just the way they are, The heart knows what it wants. The body, science has even shown that there are certain genetics that lend the predisposition for it, and environment takes care of the rest. Nobody asked for it. They can't understand that. What is neat is these people screaming about it. It's when you have to ask one, well, when did you decide to be a hetero? When did you start liking, the kind of genitalia you like? Well, I never did. Exactly. Nobody does. It's just the way it is. I mean, if you've got some God creator, why are you so upset about people he created? If he made us all, then it's all good. Now if you're trying to say, oh no, the devil made it, then that's giving your devil as much power as your God, so, why bother with any of them? It's just, that is that making, educating people to be able to look outside themselves enough to accept that everybody is a human just like them. And that is if we can ever get humanity to do that, we might actually, unfortunately, evolve into something else. Might not be bad.
You keep brushing on religion with each of your topics. So I want to ask you this question, and that's, do you believe that the Rowan County Clerk, Kim Davis, best represented the cause of religious liberty?
Lord, no. She destroyed it. Because most religious people I knew, they knew that it was good. They had the right to do what they wanted and let other people do that. What she did was drew battle lines between a new civil war along religious lines. Because everybody, me as a pagan, a friend of mine that I met some years ago when he came to this country, I even taught him how to drive over here, I've known some Buddhists. They mostly all moved away at the moment. They're not, because they kind of wanted to get out of here. But people of religion, even atheists, agnostics, I'm trying to remember the question. Did she best represent it? Most of them knew that, no, what we had was probably the closest thing to a good deal in the whole world. That, if you had a religion, you could do it without having to necessarily worry about the government legally kicking your door in and dragging you off into an extermination camp. What she did was exposed the very worst, very darkest, most vile and hate-filled aspects of that religion. Things which, most people have gone by, because they don't want to stone you to death for working on Sunday anymore. So, they got through that. But by taking it down to those, it's got a hardcore every word of this and that without any human reason, it's diminished Christianity itself as a religion, because it's shown the dark side of it out on the nightly news. And them, I don't even call Christians. That's where, from a dissertation I was making, or exhortation, whatever, the pagan group I was speaking at some years ago, that, the evangelicals, a lot of the apostolics do it too. They've developed this political group called the Dominionists, so that their God can hold dominion. And it's become a political organization. But these people have gotten so far, I mentioned that these people have gotten so far from the mission statement of their founder, Jesus, that they were dancing so close to hell's fire that they'd gotten crisped around the edges. Which then, made picked up, made the derogatory term Krispies from that, and it's sort of, especially with the advent of the internet and comments columns, it's sort of, spent the last 15, 20 years spreading it around to where, we see it coming back at us from all over the world now. But that is to help differentiate from true Christians. I've met some people who actually just, sort of listen to this guy that was supposed to be their savior and try and be non-judgmental and just help people and try and find some way to make the world a little bit better. We got them. We had some of them on our side of the courtyard last summer, and these fundies were screaming and yelling and calling them names too. But these people, they were the, but my Savior said, love everybody. Why not, don't judge anybody. I'm not judging them. We had those. Probably the happiest part was there was one of these times that right in the middle of one of their hate chants, this one girl she'd been looking kind of weird there for a little while because, I was trying to watch everybody out, in case somebody fell over from the heat. It's sort of like she just ripped up her sign, threw it down, and screamed at them, said, my God's about love. I don't know what y'all's is about anymore. And she left. Wow, somebody saw the light. But, that's, one out of there were probably 200 people over there that day. But, how to do it. What Kim did was just show the worst that their religion had to offer. I do believe it probably turned way more people away from that path than ever it could garner, because the only people that could appreciate it are, folks who just love to dominate and control. And that's not what their founder was all about. So, no, she showed them the dark side.
How do you think this issue should have been handled?
How it could have been handled? She could have done her job. She could have done what she had given her solemn word to do, and there would have been no issue. Since she didn't, somebody should have drug her out of there and either made her do it and either given her incentive to do it, or she should have just resigned. If she could not do her job for her religion, she should have resigned. If I ever can't do a job because I have an ethical issue, well, usually I just won't even apply for that job. That's why I cannot be a telemarketer, because I can't sit there and read something about how great something is and try and con people into buying it if I don't believe in it. So I just don't even try. I'll go out here. In fact, one time I went and spent about 3 months working on a farm, helping clean out the midden and things like that, rather than take a telemarketing job, because that I can't tell people crap like this and pretend like I believe it when I don't. So I just went and me on one end of the pitchfork and the muck on the other end for a while, just because the muck was not going to put me in a crisis of faith or conscience. What should have been done was she should have been, I don't care what Kentucky law says, that was a federal crime to violate that oath to the Constitution. So being such, the Fed should have walked in right then and there and packed her out. It was a done deal. She had already been on tape defying the law of the land and basically just defecating upon the civil rights of other people, which were right here in our county, neighbors kind of thing. But no, I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings, no church people's feelings. There's a lot of people out there that have beliefs that aren't in church, and they better watch out, because there is slowly, people are getting very tired of this country being so over-influenced by this one religion as to where they think they can sit there and make it the law of the land and force us to either convert to their way or kill us. There are many people, we have heard people talking about, read it online, there are a lot of people who love to have the burning times come back to take care of my kind. And I can see how easy it would be for them to go down here and set up a burning stake on the courthouse lawn to burn people that they don't like, that ain't of the right religion. So they did not do anything to her. They let her go. They let her become a celebrity for violating her constitutional oath and showing herself for a liar. And now more and more people think that that's the way to go. So now the government's going to have to deal with the mess that they allowed to make, because you can't show softness. When somebody presents themselves as your enemy, you can't mollycoddle them. And she proved herself an enemy to the Constitution of the United States. She proved herself an enemy to this country by sitting there and swearing an oath to offend it and then not. Doesn't matter that it's just one issue or not. It's like a glass. If you break it, it's broke. It's not, well, I can break it a little bit and it'll be okay. No, it's either broke or not. She is an enemy of this country, and yet she is still being touted around like some celebrity.
So you believe she should have been imprisoned?
I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but she should have been hauled up in front of a federal authority and told in no uncertain terms what her duties and responsibilities of that job entailed, and that she could either do it or not. Instead of saying, oh, well, really, it's this way. I mean, I read the transcripts and listened to some of the stuff Bunning's talking to her in court. And it was more like he was the supplicant coming trying not to offend Mama. Instead of saying, hey, you're just a person in this country. Obey the law of the land. And so there was just, like I said, there were just so many places that our government, our laws for equality were so let down by so many people that should have done it. I think at the very least she should have been removed from that place. But Kentucky law's got things written in so that if you can ever get elected, man, you're set for life. We'll watch out for you. It's the old buddy system. Fines are fine. If somebody continued to be it, I'm not a great believer in incarceration for things unless it is a violent act, because you really need to keep the animals locked up somewhere where they can't run amok. But for other crimes, she should have been publicly humiliated for being such a traitor to this country rather than rewarded for, being a traitor to our country. That could have taken, for job removal for one, monetary fines, that always, hit people in the wallet. That's where it seems to hurt most everybody most. But nothing was done, and so the problem has grown in the last year. And I just see it happening more and more. Hate even reading the news anymore.
So I want to get your opinion on her release. What did you think after she was released from jail?
No. Beyond thinking the media circus was pretty ludicrous, I figured, well, he said she could get out of jail if she did her job. So I figured, well, if it took that long to do it, and then I get down here and find out that, no, she's still not doing her job. In fact, the marriage license of one of the couples I officiated on, and it was a thing that, well, it took them 3 times for, the clerk to get one right, having to write it down one way and go get an okay from her. It was blatantly illegal even by state law, and I'm pretty sure that's what she was hoping for. But then when it was brought up that instead of, the proper signatures, this thing like, this is by a subject of court order so-and-so and so, as an authorization for these people's marriage license. But then, that was one of the few things state government did anyway, and they put a pass on it that while it was going through any of those illegally altered licenses, the state stated that they would accept them as legal so that, people couldn't come back at a later date and challenge it in law. Because it could have, that one's not a good Kentucky one, so, say your partner died and, we're going to take everything instead of let you inherit what your life mate had, which is what it would be, is I guess what they were trying was some little blow out there against them in the future if they could, and the state at least did say that they would accept them as legal regardless of how illegally mauled and mangled they were. But, that still showed, you two people here, one of them who had been born and raised here, went to school with my wife, in fact, because she was, spent most of her 10 years around here, was one of those that had this mangled up thing saying, oh, well, you're not even worth being a person. I'm sorry, but people are people. And I have put up with a lot from people just to try and get along with people. It's not even necessarily, in my nature to do that, but it's part of what, as I was growing up and determining what kind of person I wanted to be, I keep trying to rein the emotional instincts in. And I've learned a lot good too, from people around the world. I love it that day. From Georgetown College, where I was at, I hung around there a bit and got a few. Once I moved up here, it was really fun because I got international students coming in all the time. A friend of mine used to work with the international students. Sometimes because I was good at the outdoors, she would have me take groups of little Korean Buddhists around so they could find pieces out in the woods where they could get back into nature and find a little place where they could feel close to their gods out in nature. That was kind of fun stuff. Intolerance just bugs me. Even intolerance among some of my closest friends, I sometimes piss them off by kind of poking them and trying to get them to, see sometimes when they've gotten too caught up in it to see the bigger picture. Sometimes people have to calm me down when I get carried away. The question I probably got distracted from, it was, sorry, I babble a lot.
Thoughts upon her release.
Thoughts upon her release is that the system failed us. They failed everybody in this country. It had nothing to do with just gay folk. It was everybody, because she was refusing everybody. The only thing I think that got her release was not that they had decided she was going to do it, but all the haters that have been out here in our courthouse with their vans and things with all the lurid signs and nasty language and, all of these horrible descriptions about gays and the like. We kind of called them the sodomy wagons, Well, when he put her in jail, they decided to pick up roots off the courthouse in our little hometown, and they went up there and they parked on the street in front of his house in that nice, fancy, upper-class neighborhood. And as soon as they showed up there, he pissed out, and he just said, "Oh, she can get out of jail. Y'all go away and get out of my yard. My neighbors are mad at me." That, again, let down the American people. This judge, his father used to be a senator. He was Republican and more conservative than me, but I'd had dealings with Bunning's father, and I respected the man because he still believed in the country and the state. His son Jim, when he did that, he just increased the belief in these people that they are unaccountable for the actions that they do for their religion, thinking that their religion should hold greater power than our government's laws. They ain't perfect, but hey, my brother, the Marine, traveled all around the world, and that was the thing that he always held to. He says, no, it's not perfect, but it's still better than about 99% of the rest of the world has it, so be proud of it. So, that's what I keep trying to do. And that didn't help it.
I want to know how you felt about the reactions of your local elected officials.
Makes you wish you could be a mind reader so you could actually find out how many of them are just hiding their true thoughts until they get in there. There was nowhere near enough support for the law of the land. This happened. It ultimately blew up to where the whole country has found out who the haters are and who the people who just really only put on a little fake smile for people but really loathe the people they're talking to. We didn't get a lot of support from either the city or county government. There were a few here and there. Some of them, and even that, most of them, they kind of wanted to keep it sort of on the down low so they wouldn't risk their political careers on it, but that's politicians. You have to accept them for the way they are. But for the most part, there was so much could have been done to bring this to a more legal and less violent, or less irrational, less, I'm trying to say how to do that. It needed to have been done more within the law of the land and the way we are supposed to be, than letting it go over here and be so religious influenced. And I'd say religion rather than just say Christian influence, because they are the ones, I mean, even the Muslims haven't gotten in here fussing about it over here. This is just the Christian fundamentalists are the only ones that have a problem with it. And they are not the land. They are just merely people that live here too, and they should be happy that we don't outrun them 2-1, to where then they would find out that they ain't so good neither. They need to hang on to the secular law, which is written so that everybody should be the same regardless. But no, they want, their little thing. And how it should handle what I thought the city officials. We could have used a lot more help. I know that our county attorney did what he could. He tried several times to appeal through channels to those that should have done something about it, and they basically just ignored him too. That our county attorney probably was, I don't really know him personally. I don't know what his personal beliefs were, but he was in there trying to fight to get the state to help clear up the problem we had down here in this county, because, oh crap, we read the ordinances. We don't have any control over it. We got to go ask them. And then them, because the people they asked, they had political ambitions and didn't want to risk maybe losing a vote there, so they just let it slide. So that kind of left us with nothing to do but hope that people learn enough from this that we really need to everybody needs to get a little bit more involved and force the laws to change back towards where it is of and for and by the people, instead of and for and by the politicians.
Do you believe that the media attention that this issue received was appropriate?
Yeah, we could have probably used more. They, and met some of them and got to know them over the summer, but still they had to try and, unbiased, there were certain things that were glossed over so as to not seem too lurid or get too much into sensationalism, because nobody working for a major news chain wants to be accused of yellow journalism. But it was pretty good. For what it was, we could probably have used more, although, this got all the way around the world anyway. I know my mate was on a forum one time just talking to somebody, and he was asking her where this guy was in Australia, asked her where she lives. I'm in Morehead, Kentucky, and this was a forum about gardening or whatnot. Okay, nothing political, but as soon as she'd mentioned that she was from right here in Rowan County, he said, "Oh, is that where that horrible woman lives?" Oh dear, yes. There's just some crazy little guy down in the Australian outback, and that's the kind of view they have of us now. So, we got it, but we could have gotten more. Everybody tended to steer clear of the implications of what define, the supreme laws of the land are. I very much have a great spot in my heart for the Bill of Rights, those things which separate us from everybody else, and that needed to be pushed, but everybody wanted to scream this religion, 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 religion. That's why I keep bringing it up, because so many people keep missing it. Religion should have had nothing to do with it. This was entirely a legal matter. Religion is if you got one parishioner sort of messing around over with some other parishioner, and then you deal with it in-house, But when you come out here, especially if you're working a government office, it doesn't apply there because you're a person doing a job, and the job says treat everybody the same. You know, we heard so much and everybody religious freedom, and it don't care how many times people try to explain it. You've already got that. It means you can actually do it. It just doesn't mean you can push it onto everybody else that doesn't want it. You know, but sometimes I don't think intelligence is a strong suit for people who get so caught up in their little, fabricated fairy tales, because, you know, it's a story. You know, show me video and DNA proof, you know, that might be different, you know, but that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, the media did it well. They spread around what the problem was. The slant, I think, was a little bit off because more and more it tried to show, oh, these poor people feeling persecuted because we're not letting them rule the world by their religion. When it should have been, you know, these nuts are trying to bring our nation down. Because if they get their way, they will throw away the laws of this nation to try and set up something else. That is treason. And they just too thick to see it, that they are destroying this country with this stuff. So, yeah, hot button again, sorry.
Regarding your efforts and the protests, would you call them a victory?
Oh no, the war is not over. We won a few battles. We lost a few battles. The war is still going. We had highs, we had lows. You know, so, you know, victory would only be if something were a done deal, and it's not a done deal. This battle will go on for a long time, and I keep fighting for victories and liking it when we get more victories than defeats. But, you know, dealing with people, you get, you know, that's set into where you get setbacks and you got to, you know, run around the other holler and come at it from another way. But overall, even as mutated as they got it, at least finally, the laws of equality, basically meaning same for me as you, are being taken care of now. People can actually go down here and get their license and, you know, their white man's papers and get married and have a good government contract over their relationship now. They should never have not been able to done that. It should have been everybody, and now that it is, we got those that had been persecuted are allowed now. Begrudgingly, yeah, but then I remember, you know, when I was young, just getting out of high school, the first black and white couples that were legally getting to get married, you know, they got to. You know, a lot of people were grudging for that, and, you know, but over the decades of my life, I've seen it slowly getting less. So in lots of places now, just nobody notices two human beings are together, you know. Now they just notice, well, those two human beings better be of a different sex. Doesn't work like that. It's never worked like that. I mean, natural history, you know, physical sciences, it happens, people get over it. You know, if you've got to suck up some fairy tale that can't let you accept reality, then you either need to get a new fairy tale or just step out of reality. Because physics ain't going to change just because you don't want to believe that gravity will pull you down to center. And, you know, as for that, you know, we did all right. Could have been better. It could have, you know, the powers that be could have stood up and made a firm stance for the sectarian government that says everybody's the same. They kind of whiffled on that a lot. Still trying to let other people think, well, man, y'all are still special, so don't go be getting all mad and up in arms about it. You know, but, you know, that's just because really I really don't have a high opinion of the way it's operated. You know, the foundation was there is good, but as with most things, when you start applying it, having people apply it, it gets kind of wonky around the edges, but got to keep trying. And we're going to keep trying to win. And like I said, by the time this has finally been around long enough that people quit having an issue at it, there are still other rights to fight for. You know, as for me, you know, personal, sometimes it doesn't even have things to do with that. Just, you know, how deaf people are treated in this society is horrible. I fight for that, you know. Having been, you know, called to the pagan worldview of how things should be, gave me a greater respect for the feminine aspects of humanity and a greater scene of just how horribly women are treated in this world. And that not just by religions, but even the way this culture is run, you know. But that, you know, they've been screaming for a long time. Why do we have to work harder for less pay? Why do we have to be better than you just to be considered equal? And that hasn't changed, and that's another fight. That'll take it into the next 100 years. There are many people who are still being denied the right to stand up right with everybody else and be treated the same. And, you know, hopefully we'll keep looking for victories there too, and I know we're going to be having defeats. Last summer, I liked it. I'm going to give it a positive, but just realize that that's just like, well, that was like the first season of this great show, and the next season comes up, you're going to have more battles to fight, and the next season will be something else. But we did pretty good. We achieved pretty much what we wanted, which was for them to quit denying people a right that was right there in their pocket. So I'm going to try and look positive. You know, that if they can keep it, well, that's another battle. Because, you know, the way it is, they just, you know, get a bunch of curmudgeons up there saying, oh, well, them folks were wrong, we're going to change it back this way, and then there'll be again, and be years worth of battling just to get back to where you're at. Trying to be practical.
After these events unfolded, would you say that Rowan County is closer together or further apart?
Lord, no. It's seething. It will probably take something big again, but it's now some barely polite armed camps. There are people out there that wish us dead. Me, you know. Sorry, hetero, but it's okay. I actually supported them. I believe in them. I think that they're right, and you people were wrong, and y'all want to kill me. Good Jesus thinking there. But yeah, that's what this is. I mean, I'm out here. There are places that, you know, I could get hurt at. I mean, it's not like I haven't had religion, you know, Christian types assault me before for being different. You know, nice here. This was from back before I even moved up here to Rowan County. Back in the old hometown, I'd had a Baptist preacher and tried a year to preach the hell out of me, and then one night him and a couple of his deacons saw me out, and they tried to grab me because they decided to take me outside of town and beat the hell out of me because I was such a horrible person for not being in their club. You know, I mean, you know, small, but I learned in the bathrooms in school how to beat off big bullies, and didn't get too much damage before I got away, and managed to put a good set of heels to me. But, you know, there you go. Battle, you know, oh shit, got distracted again. The question again, so I can get back to it.
Has Rowan County become closer together? Oh
yeah, that one. No, they're not closer together. There are people now that, well, I found this out from a friend of mine, because during it last year there were, you know, some of them, they'd go take their video cameras, get pictures of all of us. I found that their dossiers around some of these churches about us, and, you know, they know who we are and that we was helping them, and we're on their hate list. Because especially some of the fundies, especially, they'll have a prayer list and then a prayer against them list, which, sort of fusses me, because that's all magic. If you're putting psychic energy into good or bad, you're either going to be a good little witch or a bad little witch, and I don't care what religion you say, because all of them work in that. But yeah, there are those that know me. I've saw that sometimes, just be out and about, and all of a sudden here's somebody just snarling at me for who the hell are you? And then as they frown and make the stink eye at me, and then they get in their car and you see the little fish symbol on the back, okay, there we go, one of them. It's just, I don't know if it's ever going to come back together. We're going to keep trying to spread it out and show, the group I'm with especially tries to bring out, the marginalized of many types, so that just to try and help educate the fact that we're all in this together. Because, the work I do, to sort of help out with deaf folk, you might have deaf fundamentalist who is right here with us, trying to help them out here too, just for deaf rights, and say, oh, well, see, we've got more in common. Trying to educate people. If we can get it to where everybody realizes we got to watch out for everybody, then maybe it will happen. But it's going to take a lot of the old school either dying off, or finally seeing that getting along isn't going to send them to hell. Then maybe it will be better and heal some of the conflict that is there, because it has very much polarized the area.
You mentioned earlier, you said the war is not over. Can you elaborate on what you mean by the war?
Specifically on the LGBT front?
Yes.
To get people to realize that LGBT folks are human just like them, and not some second-class person or an animal or some hateful thing that you ought to just go kill. And until we can get them to realize that their religion does not give them the right to hate and kill people and try and mess with them and let them live out on the street or starve to death or whatnot, as long as they, until people learn to get along, it won't be over, because eventually, like I said, in about 50 years, I've seen that even when they finally, let, the dark-skinned folks among us have the same rights as the white-skinned among us, that still crawls under the background. I heard a thing, the Klan's even wanting to make another big comeback now under Fuhrer Trump, and the like, and that kind of stuff just shows that, there's no getting together there. It just can't, I'm sorry. Again, I got distracted. I went to thinking one thing and got to thought of another one. That one, the question being the...
Do you believe the fight for LGBT equality is over?
Oh, no. It'll take years. You've got the right now to be able to have the same legal arrangements in your relationships, but there's still a big battle, people trying to build up power to take that back away. So it can't be over, because it's not just an accepted and a normal part of life. And until it is, going to have to be right there on the ramparts, ready to fight back the barbarians that are trying to put us back into the Dark Ages and enslave people or make them less than human. Sorry, I'd love for it to be, but it's going to be, 50 years and it's still not that way for black folks. It's 50 years from now and there's still going to be people just trying to mess up something. And then, other fights to go into, it's... And I think it was dear Ronald Reagan who said that freedom is ever only one generation away from extinction. people's rights are ever only one vote away from extinction. And if it's something that matters to you, you need to get in there and do something about it. You have to stand up. Standing up for what you believe is okay, but you really need to make sure that what you believe is right. You need to know that it will help humanity, all of it, not just little group here, little group there. It takes trying to look for a way to make the world a better place for everyone, or you'll never go. I highly doubt I'll ever live to see the end of any of these battles. Mortal's only given a few decades and then you go pop. But it's good to see that they're still going. I mean, when I was a kid in the 60s, you had to have been in a large city to even heard a whisper about LGBT stuff. Especially not out in farmland, but it's a thing that it's fluid, and I guess that's just what makes history, is keep every generation with the problem that they need to overcome, and improving if they manage, and declining and falling away if they don't. Rome used to be a pretty big shot in the world, and they're nothing but a memory and a few old traditions now. This too shall pass.
So I just have one more question. Obviously, this event has changed the community and many aspects of our understanding of how government works. But I want to know, how has this event changed you personally?
Changed me? Well, more resolved that I never back down and think that I can retire and somebody else will pick up the fight where I left. This just, there's no slacking. It's made me way more cynical, because, while I kept up with, the way the government was supposed to be, I hadn't really ever gotten down and dirty and face to face with the politicians that actually make it work, and seeing how it goes in the undercurrents. So that's made me way more cynical, because I believe much less I still believe in the laws, in the basic formulation of our government as a way to make things better for everyone here. But I have very little faith in the actual people doing it, because I see so much of it. It's all cronyism and who's got the money, and basically fuck the people. If I can make me my extra $500,000 and you can go hungry, well, sorry about your luck. And that is, got me more resolved then to just stay in a place and deal with the nastiness that seems to be so prevalent within it. As for spiritually, I feel much happier, because it is a good fight to believe in, to try and help everybody else come up and take the same place on society as everyone else. That makes me feel good that I've not given in to laziness or corruption enough to just think that, well, that's just the way it is, we'll let it go, and sorry about them. A little bit more passionate, a little bit more believing in fighting to make things right, a little bit more disgusted with some of the tools we have to use to do that. So, still there, still kicking, still angry, still going to find ways to change the status quo if the status quo hurts people.
And are there any other comments or concerns you would like to add?
Can't think of any, other than just if I've said anything to help enlighten you to the fact that you really need to look for the implications of your beliefs and actions and see if that is the road you want to go down. Because You know, I think they have a cliche about the road to hell being paved with good intentions. And the best intentions of the world, thinking that you know better than somebody else what their life is just sliding down that road again. You know, let people be self-determined, let people be themselves. Realize that, you know, if you have to be religious, believe in your, you know, trust in your God that He did things the way He wanted it, even if you can't see it, you know, because, you know, they're the ones who are always saying, oh, we have no idea, it's an ineffable plan. Well, then why are you always trying to change it? You know, I mean, because, you know, I guess I can say that because for about the first 12, 15 years of my life, I was still in that, just trying to make some sense out of what my parents, my family, and the people in the community is trying to say. Failing miserably at understanding it, but, you know, you can't, you know, if you're going to scream so loudly to promote that religion, actually find out what it says, you know, because I don't even know, you know, well, they wouldn't even have the Old Testament stuff except as a history thing if Rome hadn't pushed it in there, because that's where they had all their little dominance and control things, because, you know, the new one, you know, their guy had nothing but friendly things to say. He didn't say nothing about a lot of the people that they hate, you know, so just, you know, if you want to be so religious, believe in your Jesus, you know. Sort of like Gandhi said, you know, well, I like Jesus too, but man, I'm kind of leery of his followers. You know, it's a lot like that. You know, if you must use religion to be a good person, at least try and make sure that you're using it to be good instead of just trying to grow more hate, which is going to do nothing but destroy this species. You know, nothing guarantees that we're going to be here tomorrow, and it doesn't take a meteor to wipe us out. You know, so there's it. Look at your neighbor and realize your neighbor is a human being, irregardless. You know, try and find that love that you profess and actually demonstrate it. Be nice to people. Be nice to yourself and everybody else. It might just work. And that's why I was out there screaming and yelling and sweating on the courthouse lawn, because it seemed like the right thing to do, to try and help erase a blight that was becoming on our land. There you go. Pompous as can be, but that's me.
Okay, thanks, Doug. And this has been a conversation with Douglas Mefford for the Kentucky Marriage Equality and Religious Liberty Oral History Project.